yes, the relationship side is what made this work, because at the end of the day, I'm one person. And if I wanted to be a tile setter my whole life, okay, awesome. I could have had a very rewarding
a comfortable
career, and I would have been, able to pay my bills and awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't go to the next level. I couldn't grow my business.
That's where I'm at with my business, I feel, actually.
One of our sponsors is Recon Marketing. Recon is the fastest growing social media marketing agency in Colorado. Recon focuses on becoming an extension of your business while providing social media management, review management, and digital marketing. Recon Marketing, putting you on the radar. Our next sponsor is Planet Duct. Planet Duct offers astronomical air duct cleaning with the most powerful vacuum trucks in Colorado. They have taken air duct cleaning to a new intergalactic level that is far more powerful and proactive than anything on the market in El Paso County and southern Colorado. Sheath Underwear. Sheath Underwear has a pouch for the boys. It is everyday underwear for every man. 100% money back on the first pair if you don't like it. Visit sheathunderwear.com and enter the code COSBP20 to get 20% off your order.
The People's Tiny House Festival is the nation's largest gathering of simple living, featuring van conversions, bus conversions, and tiny houses, of course. Catch the event in Loveland, Colorado, July 16th and 17th at the Ranch Events Complex.
Get your tickets at peoplestinyhousefestival.com/tickets.
My name is Rachel Herrera, and I own the Tile Girl Remodeling.
Nice. All right, sweet. All right, so let's just go into the conversation.
Yeah.
So, and that's much better, too, because I butcher everyone's name. I'm so glad I just thought of that process. Just have them say it,
It works.
Yeah, that's cool. So how long have you been doing remodeling?
So I've been in the business for about 9 years now. I didn't start it as a full service remodeling business, but I started it more as a tile installer / tile helper. So total 9 years, but I've had my business registered since about 2017.
So tell me about the journey with that. How that started. Like, what's year one look like? And then we'll if you could year one real quick, 2, 3, 4, kind of the evolution of that, if you can.
And it's quite the evolution.
Okay.
So yeah, I didn't expect to be in this business at all.
Okay.
Pretty much, they say you fell into it. Well, that's exactly what happened.
Nice.
I grew up where my dad was in hotel construction, and that caused pretty much, we moved every 2 years because of it. So I was always around the construction world, but it was not something that I ever focused on. So just to
But it was there, though.
It was there, yeah. And I saw the work ethic, and my dad was always working or traveling. So that definitely planted the seed where I saw what it was to put in long hours. And so once I ended up going through high school, pretty much I didn't end up graduating high school. And at that point, I had no idea what I was going to do. But I said, I'm not going to let this stop me. I'm just going to get a job and make sure that I succeed in life, right? That was kind of okay, now I have to prove myself. Okay. So this is kind of a long story. It's a long story.
I'm down to listen. So was that just the safer route? Is that one of the reasons why you went that way?
Into the tile business? So I actually... When I graduated high school, I started going into any job that I could get, pretty much, whether that be customer service. Then when I got older, it was waitressing, bartending, anything customer service related. Then eventually ended up getting kind of I guess, a break, right? And based on my experience and education level, I really wasn't supposed to be hired on, into this position. And I ended up getting hired on with a mortgage company. And I was handling their loan credit closings, pretty much. So I'd evaluate all the credit reports and go through them. And not to go too far into the corporate world, but I ended up starting in the mortgage side, then worked my way over to the banking side through a bunch of conversions, and then went into the brokerage side. So I committed about 6.5 years in the banking and brokerage world, worked my way up, ended up going into the banking brokerage platform in a wealth management division, and took on a training position there. So it just wasn't...
So training people...
Yeah, training, putting together the actual curriculum. It was something I had never done before. I was in front of 28 students, and these were usually college graduates, and it was their first position in corporate America, and that was a new world to me.
Was it exciting? So that's kind of feels like an entrepreneur kind of thing, you know,
Yes.
like where you're inside of another business but
Yes.
doing your own thing kind
Exactly.
of. Okay.
And I was like, are they sure? Like,
'Cause it sounds like you were pushing your boundaries, you know, of what you're
Yeah.
comfortable with, and that's what entrepreneurs do. So
Yeah. And I always felt that way. I felt like if I can advance my skills on the interview side, that's really what I was trying to focus on because I didn't have experience. So I told myself if I can go into an interview and I can wow somebody and you know, I speak the language, you know, it's really
Yeah.
it's like that whole imposter syndrome where you're like, I have no idea what I'm doing. I have no
For sure.
idea, but I'm going to go into this interview and I'm going to act confident. And that, I mean, that really did go a long ways in the beginning. And then I started gaining the experience and the knowledge, and I took the time and invested the time to learn about the products, and you know, and I'm referring more to the banking world.
For sure,
and
yeah.
when I became an expert in that, that's when I was able to apply it to that training position.
Yeah.
And you know, I had to go through a very extensive interview process, and there was about 400 applicants, and I was one of the individuals that was selected.
Nice.
So I spent about 2 years in New Jersey because I got transferred for the position.
Okay.
And yeah, I ended up teaching.
Nice.
Wasn't expecting it. So yeah, the whole time I was freaking out because I really didn't know what I was doing.
Did you enjoy it?
I did. I enjoyed it. But what you know, I'm getting somewhere, and based upon where I came from, it felt like I would never even be in that position.
Okay,
so it
yeah.
felt
You were proud of yourself.
rewarding.
Yeah.
Yes, I felt like yes, I am. I'm doing this.
Yeah.
You know, odds are against me, but I'm doing it. And I had everyone against me during it. You know, most of my counterparts, they had their master degrees in English, and you know, they made sure to let me know that. And
Okay.
so there was a lot of conflict with it, where you know, they felt like it wasn't necessarily fair that I was in the position. And I, you know, I'll always respect college and education,
For
and
sure.
it just wasn't my route. I didn't take that route.
Well, that's the funny thing is like you can prove yourself. You can be more valuable than someone who's had a college education just based off of maybe your people skills.
Right.
Maybe other skills that you have.
Right.
Maybe your ability and determination to learn the things that you need for that specific job. They just took a whole school like a whole
Yeah.
like education.
Yeah.
But really, like, you only needed to learn this one thing to get this one job.
Yeah. And school was not easy for me. I
neither.
never had that attention, and ADHD. That's like a full force thing for me. And
same.
that's why I don't like sitting in a chair, and I like moving and going. But I didn't know that. I didn't know my learning skill. I just thought there was an issue with my process and processing altogether. And so that really affected me in the schooling system. And then because we
Definitely.
moved so much, there was, you know, it just felt like, okay, what is going on here? But once I got into the workforce, and once I realized there's a different way, and I learned, I figured out how I process information, and I'm very hands-on. And once I get something, I get it. I'm a sponge at that point, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah.
So it took a while to learn that.
And the dedication. You were determined. You saw like
Yes.
you wanted to make something, and you knew that you could, if you just spent a few hours, or not just a few, but like
Yeah.
a lot of hours dedicating to maybe one idea, one
Yes.
topic, you could excel in that. You
Yes,
know?
and watching others, and watching how they were completing the task, and just watching my surroundings, because it was never easy for me to sit and read a book and focus in, because my mind was elsewhere. That's like
Same,
the whole
yeah.
attention side. So, and I always saw that as just a lack of
Discipline.
yes, yeah. And I was like, why can't I do what they do and sit and focus? And so what I started realizing was like, no, you need to watch surroundings. You need to watch and hands on. And it's not about you sitting and reading every line for line. I'm more of a speed reader.
Yeah.
So I go through things quickly, and for some reason my mind processes better that way.
Yeah.
So not to go too much into that side, but it really did. It was a big factor in
For
in
sure.
everything I do. So yeah, with the corporate side, I mean, I focused the years and I put in the commitment, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't my happy place.
Was it a good paying salary? I assume.
Yeah, and it looked awesome on the resume, and it built everything up to where if I wanted to pursue something in that industry, it was, you know, a very easy transition,
Yeah.
and people were willing and wanting to hire me.
You felt like you even if you quit, you could find a job.
Yeah.
You could find whatever job you wanted.
Yes.
Yeah, nice.
Yes.
And that's how I feel, you know. Like
Yeah.
I feel if you're determined, you can get whatever job you want. Or
Absolutely.
or you can just own the job and give it to other people.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And that's where I wanted to go. I was like, I'm an entrepreneur and didn't even know it.
Yeah, nice. And so, yeah, let's talk about that. How did you get into that?
Yeah. So just to kind of fast forward, once I left the corporate world and I was in New
what year is
Jersey.
this?
So let's see. 2013 is
Okay.
when I moved to Colorado.
Nice.
So I ended up coming to Colorado, had no idea what I was going to do because I went from New Jersey, left Maryland.
What was the appeal of Colorado?
Of Colorado. So I lived here once before.
Okay.
So when I was 17 to 19, that's when I had lived here. My brother still lived here.
Nice.
And so when I left, I was like, what am I going to do? So I went back to Arizona because that's where all my family is. Stayed there for about a month. And then my brother said, hey, come out and see me because it'd been a while since I had come and visited. So when I did come out, he said, Rachel, you can stay with us, figure out what you want to do. And I was like, yeah, all right, let's go with round 2 for Colorado. So when I came here, I ended up going back into pretty much the same field. Committed about a year into financial planning. I went and got my insurance license and took all the tests, which once again was very difficult, but I passed it, was super excited. I was like, okay, maybe I'll enjoy this aspect. I worked with my sister-in-law's father, and so we would handle seminars and we'd do these unique strategies, but at the end of the day, once again, I fell into something where I was like, this is not my passion.
Didn't you just leave the job?
Pretty much, different sides of it, but it was still in the financial.
When you got back
world.
into it, was that just because you needed a job, or?
Pretty much.
Okay.
and it seemed exciting just because I was able to help with running I was running the seminars. So it was, it was cool. Like putting on the actual presentations and then, getting to go to the seminar, setting everything up.
Were you speaking?
It was fun. I would only speak at the end.
Okay.
So her dad was the one that was running them and he'd do the presentations of the whole process. And then at the end, I was considered one of the financial planners that you would speak with.
Yeah, you were the financial expert.
Yes.
Yeah. Nice.
Yes.
Okay.
So, go on a bunch of meetings after that. But it was, I just found myself sitting there always thinking, what am I doing?
Yeah.
What am I doing? It's cool and it's more experience and it looks good, but I'm still doing something just to have a job, number one, and then also prove myself further. Okay, now I can do this.
Yeah,
so it was about a year that I committed to that.
So before you get into jumping into your business, I have a question about the financial thing. Just because, what would be your number one advice to someone to improve their financial status?
Organization.
Okay.
So, and as a business owner, I found that that's where not only myself in the beginning, but other business owners fail, is if you don't have your process in place and you don't know what realistic costs are to run a business, then how could you ever know what to charge your customer, right?
That's the know your numbers kind of.
Yes, know your numbers. And that is not easy in the beginning because there's so many things to consider when bidding a project. And most contractors, when they start, they're only thinking about the project, the paycheck. They're not thinking about, okay, this is what my insurance costs. This is what the mileage on my car costs. This is the wear and tear. This is my storage fees, my tools. There are so many different fees. 100%. And also, you have to have a backup. You have to have a reserve because in the construction world, things happen.
Yeah.
And if you can't support a mistake, then that is where you see people in this business turn over. So
no, for sure,
number one is just know what your costs are and be prepared for a day where things go wrong because it can happen and will happen.
It will happen, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. All right, well, cool. So yeah, let's talk about now we've talked about kind of what's kind of gone up to the point where you are about to start your business.
Yeah.
Let's go to that day where you started it.
So this is the fun part. So I was doing the financial planning. It was commission based. I was struggling to make ends meet. I was waitressing on the side too, just to try to bring in the income. So at that point, my brother-in-law now, his best friend moved from Florida, and he had a tile business for about 15 years prior.
Okay.
So he was an expert in tile. I had no knowledge of tile, zero. Well, at that time, he needed a roommate, and so did I. So we actually became roommates, but also he realized I was struggling, working all kinds of hours, but not bringing in the income needed to even just support
Spinning your
rent.
wheels.
Yeah, it was like, okay, like how am I going to even pay rent? So he saw this and he said, Rachel, why don't you come with me and be my tile helper? And I was like, are you sure about that?
Yeah.
I was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. He's like, it's okay. Like, just come on the job site. Even just having an extra pair of hands will be super helpful. So I was like, all right. So like day one, I go and I'm like, oh gosh, I feel so out of place. I don't know what I'm doing. He's like, just, carry this, carry that. Or and then eventually it started evolving. So eventually I started mixing his grout buckets, mixing the thin set buckets. And I started learning the consistencies, and like, that's where I started. So I started watching to see like where the need was, like where like the next step is that I see him heading, and how can I help him?
Yes.
So then he's not asking for something, I'm already there, so I started watching his process, just like with what I do in everything. Math was always, everyone thinks that being in the tile business, you have to be this mathematician. And I struggled with math. So I was freaking out thinking, oh my gosh, the tape measure and reading all of the measurements and calculating square footage. And that was like a nightmare in my mind. And I'd come from the financial planning business, but it's, it's just contrary to what everyone believes. That's not how my mind works. I just figured out a different system for it. So once I started, learning the consistencies, and then I started grouting, and I was like, okay, now I'm going to master grout. I'm going to be the best grouter there is, where I could even go outside and say, all right, well, James doesn't have work for me today. So maybe this installer, I could go grout a large square footage project. So got that down. And then eventually I started marking cuts for him, and then I started making the cuts for him, and it just kept evolving where I tried to learn as much as possible, and it was all hands-on. So
what a major difference.
That's where my, that's my sweet spot is like, okay, I'm in the mix, like I'm hands-on. So it was easy for me to pick up the knowledge and just start absorbing. So that's where it started.
Okay.
Didn't expect it to keep going.
So how long were you doing that before you decided I'm going to start my own?
So I shadowed him for a solid year.
Okay.
Yeah, that seems to kind of be my like going thing, where I commit to something for a year, and then I feel confident at that point.
That's good.
So he was, he loved to make his money and enjoy life.
Yeah.
And I think that's awesome. He was like, yeah, I'm gonna go to Costa Rica. I'll make a big check and then go.
He would get like a big contract and be like, then take a break.
Yeah.
Okay.
And like for him that was awesome, but for me I was like, oh well. I'm working on tile helper wages. I was like, I can't take 2 weeks off.
That's
so I was
true.
like, well, now what? So once I felt comfortable enough, after that first year, I was like, you know what? It's time. It's time. I'm going to break away, buy my own tools. And I feel good at this point to install a backsplash, do smaller repairs, and install smaller, simple layouts on flooring projects.
Yeah.
So that's where I started.
Yeah, that's the competence breeds confidence kind of thing,
It did, and I was scared shitless. Excuse my language. But I didn't know. I was like, how's this going to go?
Especially going out and trying to find your own contracts.
Well, yeah. And what I realized was when I was at those job sites with James, when I first came in, it was almost like, oh, I see you brought your helper. And I always felt like, oh, I'm just kind of like this sidekick that showed up and, oh, how cute kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that was just kind of the perception and what I received, like how I felt.
Did that fuel you in any way to prove that you weren't just the helper? Okay.
Absolutely. Because I was like, I'm not just this like cute girl that came on the job site. I'm like, I really am here, and like, I'm here to prove. Yeah, I'm grouting. I'm grouting. But yeah, eventually I started realizing, like, the more confidence I got, the more the females started gravitating towards me, just talking about the design side, and they wanted to know my opinion. And then the husband would gravitate because they saw that their wife was comfortable. So they started asking me questions, and they started initiating that lead conversation instead of it just being, okay, James, you're the lead installer. So I noticed a shift. And when that shift happened, it kind of made me feel like, oh, well, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe I do have an advantage, just even as a female in the business.
You started seeing like a niche kind
of.
Yeah, for sure.
Yes. And I was like, all right, this is cool. So when I did break away, once I started getting my first clientele, it didn't take long for word to get out where they're like, yeah, we had this female come, she said our backsplash, she was wonderful, like it just started getting pushed out there. And that from there, I mean, it picked up very quickly.
Nice, good.
Very quickly.
So that's the interesting thing about construction.
Yeah.
Is if you're good and you're persistent and committed, you can find work everywhere.
Yes. Yes. If you learn to build, you'll never go hungry.
Yes.
And that is the truth. Like if you pick up a skill in some sort of trade, that would be
I guess
like,
that's any trade, you're right.
Yes, yes. That would be my most valuable advice, period, is if you can pick something up like that, then you will always be able to work.
Well, that's what video editing did for me. I mean, I wanted to be a YouTuber, and so I learned some video editing, some of the cringiest videos I've ever made.
Oh, we all have them.
And there's this. Okay, I won't go into that story, but yeah, I was at the sidetrack.
It sounded good.
But I'll continue the YouTube story. That's where I learned that and started really building my skills. And I did this thing where there was a daily vlog I was doing, editing 10-minute videos every single day for 90 days straight. It was also wake up, start filming, think of a narrative. Finish the footage, edit by the end of the day, release it the next morning. Do that over and over and over again for 90 days straight. As people started noticing that, like, they were calling me a really good editor and stuff like that. And like, if I look at that stuff now, it's like that's some simple stuff.
But at the
yeah,
time,
it's still more than what most people are familiar with.
Yes.
Most people see a video, have no idea, and I remember that actually. I remember like, oh crap, what do I got to do?
Yeah.
iMovie, I can do it on iMovie. Started doing it on my phone, and like I was editing my first videos on my phone.
Yeah.
But picking up that skill is something. It's after about two or 3 years of already learning video, because I started a few other YouTube channels. One was like a documentary nature series.
Cool.
And that was my first time out in Colorado Springs actually because of that.
No way.
And then like a year or two after that, I came back for something else.
Awesome.
And then I stayed.
Yeah, it's better, honestly.
But and I grew that skill. And to about two or 3 years of growing that skill, I realized, oh crap, I could turn this into I'm going to try I can get a job in this field. And that was my first thought for one day, and then I was like, I don't want to have to. I want to make my own job, because
that's right.
I figured everyone was going to have. I figured most people were going to either want to see that you went to some kind of film school or something like that. Turns out that's not the case. You can still get a job without that.
That's right.
But
it's not all about degrees. It's not.
Yeah, and
especially now. Things are changing.
It's getting more and more that way. Yeah, 100%. And then. The reason that thought went away, because I've always been entrepreneur spirited, and art, like, it didn't take long for it wasn't like I can't get a job. It was just like I don't want to, like about a day of wanting to get a job in the film industry. I was putting out applications across like the nation, Wow. I was gonna move to wherever I could get the job.
Yeah.
But then eventually I was like, no, I'm just gonna start my own business, and then eventually came to Colorado Springs for construction, actually on the military base.
Oh, cool.
Doing gutters and.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so
you're familiar.
Yeah.
You're familiar with the world, the construction world.
And so that was just my little tangent on building that skill, having a skill set, and you started building that skill, and then you decided you wanted to start your business.
Yes, exactly.
And so word started picking up.
Yeah.
And were you busier than you could handle?
Yes.
Okay.
So when I broke off on my own, I mean, it felt awesome, and it was exhilarating, and I felt like even my confidence started shooting through the roof, because once I started completing each job, I was like, all right, I got this. But when things did start picking up, I started feeling overwhelmed because it was just myself, and it was hard for me to say no. So I think that's also something really common in this business, is once you start to pick up that traction and people hear about you, and they start, which is a blessing and a half, they start pushing business, they start pushing their friends your way, and they're like, hey, yeah, call the Tile Girl Remodeling. And I wasn't an established business at that point. I was just the Tile Girl, right?
Yeah.
So once that happens, it's like, awesome, but how do I keep up? How do I say no? How do I be selective? And that took a while too. But so, yes, I was taking on whatever I could because I was still just trying to make a living and figure out this whole world. So eventually it got to the point where I remember being on a job site and there was a general contractor there. And that's who I came on the job site to work for. And I was watching what he was doing, and I saw all the different subcontractors coming in, and I saw his process. And I never really thought about it before, where it was like, okay, he's just putting the puzzle pieces together and finding the right person to do the job. I'm over here setting tile, going crazy like day by day, not being able to keep up. And I have customers asking me, okay, do you do painting? Do you do drywall? Do you do this? I'm like, no. And then I was watching that general contractor. I was like, no, but I could. Why can't I do like what he's doing and find contractors to work with me?
Yes.
So eventually I just started making those connections and those relationships on the job sites that I was at and started meeting I kind of saw it as, all right, I need to fill this spot. I need a painter. I need a drywall guy. I need these slots to start building and to start taking on additional jobs. And so over that time, I met the right people, and it's always an evolution with building your team. Because life happens, right? So you build your team, you're all happy, you're like, yes, I have the right people on board. Say somebody moves or whatever it is, it changes all the time. So that is probably the hardest part of this business, is having the right team. So, I mean, and maintaining. Yes, and maintaining. And knowing how to fill that position when someone does, take a step out onto the next opportunity. So long story short with that, I just saw how he made it work. And I was just watching, and then I started putting everything into place.
How did he make it work? In a nutshell, I guess, because it's probably a long process.
And so that was all about meeting the right people and talking to people. And, I'd see a painter on one job site, and then I'd get their backstory and see, okay, well, what are they? What are they looking for? Do they want to take on work? Would they be willing to work with me? Hey, I have customers asking for a painter, and at the time I didn't have one, but hey, do you want to team up? So yes, the relationship side is what made this work, because at the end of the day, I'm one person. And if I wanted to be a tile setter my whole life, okay, awesome. I could have had a very rewarding
a comfortable
career, and I would have been able to pay my bills and awesome, right?
Yeah.
But I couldn't go to the next level. I couldn't grow my business.
That's where I'm at with my business, I feel, actually.
Yeah. And I think like when anyone grows, that's going to be the hardest part, is finding reliable people, people that do believe in what you're trying to do, your vision. And then also you have to figure out your pay structures. There's so many different components that go into it. And I had never been a business owner. I hadn't been, in the position where I had to figure out, they're all subcontractors, but in a sense, it's like you have to figure out all of the pieces just as if they were an employee, right? What's your pay? What's their schedule? They're not an employee, so there's no commitment to where they have to be somewhere, right? Because subcontractors have that right. So how do I make sure that there's incentive to have them want to work with me on an ongoing basis?
Yeah.
Because it's very difficult.
Let them know that if they work with you, there's money.
There's money. I pay. But a lot of people on the job sites, they would talk down to people and talk down to the people working with them.
The construction industry can be pretty toxic.
Yeah.
It can be.
And I dealt with that myself. I mean, being a female on all of the job sites, anything you can imagine, I dealt with it. Anything you can imagine, being a female in that industry.
Yeah, I just imagined 3 things.
Yes, and so all of them, yes. Every single one was a yes. But over time, it did stop, because before I was going into other contractors' jobs, right? Because I was just trying to pick up business. And then when it got to the point where I had my own clientele and I started gaining knowledge, and the more confident I was when I went into a job site, the more answers I was able to answer with confidence, that's when that just started to diminish.
What?
Just the whole a different type of treatment.
Okay.
Different type of
Good.
treatment.
A little more respect.
A little more respect.
Yeah.
Yes. And, I'm not the person to be like, yeah, you need to show me respect, because you can't just demand
Well,
it.
yeah, that's how you get disrespect.
Yes, exactly. And it's so true what they say. But you do walk into that business at first being like, oh, I have to just be tough, and I have to be tough around the edges. And, otherwise you feel like you're not going to survive, because you feel like people will walk all over you.
Mm-hmm.
But I started, and they did. I got ripped off many times. I had my tools stolen.
Ouch.
I mean, it was so many things that it was like, okay, I could have stopped then, because maybe I couldn't afford a new saw. Maybe I couldn't afford, whatever I needed that was taken.
Well, that's what separates the successful people, is that they don't stop.
They don't stop. I've never been a quitter. My mom and dad are like, geez, Rachel, like, you didn't start walking, you started running.
Nice.
And they're like, when we discipline you, you like bite your hand and look us back in the eyes. And like, it's funny how, like, even from when we're little, how those things do develop so young.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
I think that's just kind of played true all throughout my adult life too. But yeah, I could have been shut down so many times with all the things that happened. Yes.
There's a company I'm working with, their software company.
Yeah.
And they have a thing called Power Tool. The software is called Power Tool Safe.
Yeah.
And they help you track your tools. I'm giving them an advertisement right now.
Oh, cool.
And they not just track your tools, but they help you keep records and create records, so that when your tools do get stolen, you have some kind of plan to actually take action for that.
Very nice.
And it talks with local pawn shops. It talks with police. It builds the reports. It's pretty cool software.
That's super cool.
And it's free for the first 10,000 tools.
No way.
$10,000 worth of tools.
And everyone has had a tool stolen.
Yeah.
That I know.
It's a bad industry. I mean,
Everybody.
it's a bad problem in the industry of construction.
Right.
$1.1 million of tools were stolen in 2021 in the Pikes Peak region.
Dang.
I know these stats.
I'm sure some of them were mine.
Yeah. I know all this because I literally created a video for them.
Yeah.
So I have
the stats.
I have their messaging down perfectly because
Yeah.
I helped them edit it
Cool.
and create it. So
Where were they before?
yeah. Well, they're building. They're starting to do
That's
things. Yeah.
cool.
And it just wanted to throw that out there. Just for you, because you said you had that happen to you, and I just wanted to give you.
I know firsthand,
Yeah.
and it's an awful feeling. You're just robbed.
Yeah.
How am I going to get this now? I don't have the money to replace it.
Yeah, I could I could only imagine. That's when you have to pull out a credit card. You know?
Yeah. And I didn't have credit cards at that time.
Well, damn.
So I was like, all right, well, who can I borrow a tool from? And, I was really fortunate, because there were those people that were willing to reach out and help, and saw like, look, that happened to her, right? And I'm like,
They
hey,
felt bad.
I have a tool for you to use.
Yeah.
Like, little things like that is what helped me keep going.
People are good.
They are. They're good.
They can be bad, but
they are. There's bad out there, but you know what? There's so much to just be thankful for, and that's like my biggest thing. I'm so grateful for my life. I'm so grateful for all the things that I went through, the disadvantages, when I got knocked down, and because I've been knocked down left and right throughout my whole life. But I am so happy and thankful for like what has been put in front of me.
That's awesome.
The struggle's always there. Always.
We gotta clip that, dude. That was awesome.
Oh, thanks.
But I was just thinking, you started to go back into, not to just switch gears.
Yeah.
But to back into the business side of that. You were expanding, but you were expanding horizontally.
Yes.
Like you were adding other things.
Yes.
Were you still doing the grouting? Were you starting, or have you hired that out, or are you part of that? That's part of your business?
Right. So once it got to the point where I was getting too much business pushed my way, and then once I brought in other individuals to take on the work, it wasn't realistic time-wise, because say I'd be, installing a fireplace, and then I'm getting called, I have to go do a meeting for a new sales, right? Like, or a new job, right?
You're hindering yourself.
And then I'm doing paperwork, and like, once you start taking on those multiple projects and you're still setting, it became where I couldn't focus and give the attention where it was needed.
Yep.
And so if you can't do that, then your customer experience is going to suffer.
Plummet,
And I
yeah.
am 100% about experience.
Same here,
and
yeah.
that's what sets me apart is I care about the experience. Like that's number one. So if I couldn't break away, so say if I have to break away, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Eventually I was like, nope, not gonna work. So I found the right people to take on the work so I could focus on going on those meetings,
Yep.
working on the back end, doing my least favorite part, the computer work.
Yeah. What's that cliche saying,
Yeah.
Stop working on your or in your business
Yes.
and start working on your business,
Yes.
and that's what you started doing.
Yes, and it took years to get to that point. It did.
What year were you in on that?
So I would say when I actually broke away, I was at year 3.
See, I'm in year 3.
Yeah.
And that's why I
Yeah,
said I think
see?
I'm exactly right there.
Yeah, year 3. And that's where I started feeling like, all right, like I understand the installation side. And now when I go meet with a client, in that initial meeting, I really know what I'm talking about. They are gravitating towards me. They want to give me the job and they're happy to give me the job. And then at that point, I'm still new to the project management side. So that's where my next hurdle came. It's like, okay, I met people, I'm making relationships, I get how the system is working, but the project management side, that's new to me. Yes, I was working with trainees in the corporate field and I was teaching, but it was a different beast, like altogether in the construction field. And just making sure that, you have your list, your punch list, I didn't have that in place yet. It just wasn't there yet. So things did suffer, not knowing how to keep that in control.
What all goes into the project management of a job, of a tile job?
Yeah, a lot. And so in the beginning, when you are planning, and I say planning because it is the most important part.
For sure.
A lot of people want to rush into the project. And they're like, I want this done ASAP. I wanted this done yesterday. I'm like, okay, that's wonderful. I know as humans, we want everything done right away. And just
As modern humans.
wave the wand and like, whoa, my bathroom's done. But even just one bathroom, there's a lot of planning that goes into it. So from that starting point, making sure that your contract is in place and clear, that's going to be your number one, is working with your customer. And this is for you and your customer. The more I itemized and the more detail I put in all the kind of like the stipulations at the bottom, just to say, these are questions. Yes, these are questions that I know the customer would have if I was the customer. And so the contract always grows, right?
For sure, because at first you don't even know what those questions are.
Yeah, you don't. You don't. And it's only by experience that you know what to put in there. And I think a contract can be scary for certain people, but I try to make it more of like an informative document.
Yeah.
Saying,
and make sure that we're on the same page,
included.
Yeah.
Yes, this is what's included. There's no question, right? So the more that I put into that, side of it as the number one step, that was my first focus point. Then once you're planning, because bathroom remodels, there's a lot of moving parts. When you're doing a full gut of a bathroom, that means that, you're selecting, what do you select first? Even just on the design side, right? So getting your design in place, knowing your layout, producing a drawing so that customer can approve the layout.
Or a 3D rendering?
Well, of course, yes. Okay. And that's what I mean. Eventually it evolved to that. But remember, in the beginning.
Yeah. Oh, you were drawing it.
In the beginning, I'm just doing what I can.
I've been doing a lot of 3D modeling, by the way. So
awesome.
If you need any work on that, maybe I could help.
Yes, I love that.
That's part of the game dev kind of, I guess, that goes into that.
Yes.
But I also want to make sure that I'm focused, and I don't want to pick up other stuff and get distracted. I want to be laser focused on game dev.
Yeah.
But, I can do 3D modeling. Just
Heck
to throw that out there.
But that's like evolving. So before I would just talk about design and I'd bring samples, but it really ended up evolving to where I said, okay, if I want to charge a premium for a service, then I need to show that I'm giving them like the next level, right? So it started so simple where I have the samples, I have hand drawings, whatever it may be. And then eventually I said, okay, this has to fit what I'm charging. Yes. And if I want to charge that premium, then now, okay, I need those renderings. I need the 3D renderings.
Gotcha.
A lot more hands-on, making sure that customer feels like, hey, I'm catering to them. So that is a big part of what I do. And I make sure I'm present for as much as they want me to be, especially through the design.
For sure.
So getting those layouts, contract, getting those designs, layouts approved, and then putting your material list together. Making sure that you have gone through every measurement and putting a list together, not just going off the top of your head, because lists were always, to me, a daunting experience. Like writing down, because that required me sitting and focusing. And exactly. So I realize it's just something you have to commit to.
Yep.
Otherwise, you're going to miss items, no matter what.
Yeah.
You can't just keep everything.
For sure.
So then putting your list together. And then making sure that you place those orders in a timely manner, because never expect something's going to be available.
Yeah.
Never expect.
Especially post-COVID.
So waiting times, being realistic. And then moving from, once you have all of your materials, you have everything on order, you have everything on site, the true project management comes into play when managing the job site, right? When you first start the project, everyone's hyped up and they're excited. There's the adrenaline because they're like, yeah, demo day. They see everything coming out. It's scary, but they're excited. Through that phase, there's the rough-in, right? It's the rough part. You're roughing in plumbing. The plumber comes in. I'm not doing the plumbing, but just saying they go through that process and that takes longer. So roughing in and doing the prep work and the waterproofing, that's where it's about setting those realistic expectations with the customer. And that is a big side to project management.
For sure, yeah.
And that's where it falls apart. If I set an expectation that a bathroom will be done in 1 week, but realistically it takes a month because of wait times, or I can't have 5 different people in a bathroom. This isn't a TV show, right? And I think that's a big part of the misconception of what we do, because
you get that with
see
video
these
production
shows,
as well. Yeah.
Yes, and it's like, well, that's not reality, and this does take a lot of hard work, and I can't have 5 people in one small space at a time, right? So project management on the expectation side, and then of course with your team, everyone that is there doing the hard work, putting in the long hours, making sure that you are in contact with them about their arrival times, when they're going to be leaving for the day, because customers want to know when someone's showing up and when they're leaving their home. That is a top complaint.
For sure.
To be real, a top complaint is time. Time. You could have the most beautiful bathroom in the world at the end of the day, but if your experience was poor because there wasn't communication on when someone was showing up, when they were leaving, they didn't clean up after themselves, there was a delay, they took off to Home Depot, and then, wait, where did they go? Stuff like that, they're in the dark. And so it's my job as a project manager to say, you know what, like, this was an unexpected bump in our road. Like, we just have to make sure that we go pick this up. I even let them know ahead of time. We do have to break away sometimes because we don't know what's happening behind those walls. We don't know sometimes if we're going to need that extra material, right? So as long as I inform and I try to communicate ahead of time, there's a lot more understanding.
For sure, yeah.
Instead of just feeling like, well, wait, I've never been through this before, and this doesn't seem right, just based on whatever they've seen.
It takes a couple things going wrong for them to think that they hired a truck in a truck, or a crappy contractor.
Right. Right. And there's a bad name out there for sure. And I would like to change that. A whole image, right? But
yeah, it sounds like you're doing a good job.
Well, thank you. But I rely on a lot of people to make it all go round. So you do find yourself in that position because life happens, right? Say a contractor's kid is sick, or there's just life happens. And sometimes it's really hard to navigate through that and have an understanding between you and the customer. Like, if it was up to me, I want to do so good, and I want to impress, and I want to make sure we're there every moment when we say we're going to be there. But setting the expectation that sometimes life does happen. Yeah. And I'm not saying like this is a usual. I'm just saying it's just an honest part of the process.
No, for sure.
And especially the project management process. Just being open and clear, and talking with the contractors and knowing what's going on, so then I can communicate.
Nice.
So that's going to be the biggest part of the project management side overall.
Yeah.
Just to kind of lead back to the beginning of the question.
Yeah, exactly. No, that was great. And so where do you want to take the company now?
So at this point, I feel like I've done so much rewarding things in the business, and I've proven like, okay, like I can design the most beautiful bathroom and I can manage a team to make it happen. And there's no issue on keeping my business running. Like we've built a really reputable name and things are good, right? Well, there's two sides that I'd really like to hone in. And because I have such a love for it, and I feel like I'm just really good at it.
Okay.
But that's going to be the design side.
Yes.
I would love to start focusing more on and taking the time to focus on more of the tile design, bathroom designs, because I shine. Like that is where I shine.
Like some creative
yes.
designs?
Yeah, and you can see a bunch of my designs. I design most of the projects unless they already have a designer hired on.
Where can people go see that?
So the tilegirlremodeling.com. Also, all of my up-to-date work is where I post the most recent photos is going to be on Instagram and Facebook. It's all under the same. It's the Tile Girl Remodeling, where you can locate me on any social media site. But that's where I have fun. And I'd really like to just start like taking the time to focus more energy on that side. Another big part, and this is going to be more of like my 2-year plan and goal, is I want to start educating females. I would like to have a trade school, specifically the Tile Girl Remodeling for females.
Nice.
That way we can start, putting that out there in the world where females have a safe place to come. They can learn in a creative space, but also a technical space where you don't have to just go and go through the process I went through. I mean, it was super valuable, but looking back, if I was to try to present that to somebody else coming into the field, they'd be like, heck no, I don't want to do it. Like, that is way too much, right? A little too much struggle for that. But if I could create that safe space, there's trade schools, there are programs where you can go team up with contractors. But what I find is when you do get teamed up with contractors, they are so overwhelmed already, where you're more so just shadowing and following, but you don't get a ton of hands-on time committed to the installation side. So that's more of a long-term. And I would love to see it come to fruition, and I'm already working on the business plan.
There's a necessity for that too. I mean, in the construction field, as you know, there's not that many skilled laborers out there.
Right.
It's hard to find. There's a lot of construction companies struggle to find good workers consistently.
Yes. Yes. And to be the Tile Girl Remodeling, be like, yeah, your installer Sarah will be there today, or it would be an awesome thing. I'm all about like, it's not just, it has to be all females, but it would be so cool if I could start educating and bringing females into the trade that maybe they wouldn't have selected in the first place. That wouldn't have been their go-to. And I don't see this as a backup or a plan B. Like, this can be a super rewarding career.
For sure.
Yes, and take it where you want.
I 100% agree. My buddy Diego Lujan, he started a plumbing trade school.
Nice.
And they've been open for about a year now.
Oh, cool.
And he sees that need in that too, and he's passionate about it as well.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Maybe that would be a good connection.
Yeah. And I do need more education on that side because I'm just starting out on, even the business plan side.
Yeah.
So,
and he's doing the trade school aspect.
Cool.
So yeah, check it out. I think it's Plum Tech.
Okay.
Let me look real quick.
Yeah.
And dead air.
This is where I start singing.
Yes. Hey, you said it.
No.
Plum, Plumb, Tech. All right. I don't know. I'm speaking into Texas.
.com.
Okay. Plum Tech Trade School. Yeah,
Cool.
It's just Plum Tech. Yeah. Okay. So I was saying it right. It felt like there's more to that.
Yeah. So he's already been through it.
Yeah.
He knows.
Yeah. And so
he knows the steps.
I think he's on some like TV show right now too for like plumbers or something like that.
Heck yeah. And that's, at the end of the day, it'd be awesome to have a show, right? It'd be awesome to buy investment properties and have my team that we taught, and we all have the drive for it and the vision, and we all love what we do, and we can just go into that home and make it beautiful as a team, and know that there was a lot that went into it because they started from having no knowledge to becoming like maybe the most fantastic tile installer in the world or whatever they want to learn. You know, they can go into sales, design, whatever it is. I want whoever does come into a situation like that, I want them to know you don't have to break your back your whole life because tile is hard. It's going to wear on your body and it wears on your body fast. So the more you can, you know, educate yourself in the sales and the design, that's where you can step out and still pursue your career and be involved in that business.
Well, sweet. Yeah, this has been a great conversation.
Thank
you. I
you.
appreciate you coming on the show. I'm glad you found the show and
Heck
came
yeah.
on it so you could be able to come on it and we can have this conversation.
Really appreciate it.
Yeah. So is there anything else you'd like to mention or let the people know? You can address the camera if you want.
All right. Yeah, I mean, my main focus is I worked in Denver for about 6.5 years, and I now live in Colorado Springs. So, you know, that is a lot of driving.
For the last
almost 3 years. And so that's a lot of driving. And it would be wonderful to meet more clients in the Springs area. And that's a big focus for me right now, just to get back more time.
Have you done any of the local networking events that have been going on?
I have not.
Okay, I could name a few for you.
Yeah, please.
1 Million Cups is one. You may be able to just start like getting your name out there, letting people know. You could actually even apply to speak at 1 Million Cups. I'm sure they would love to have you there. They're actually moving to the next us, Marcus. I don't know if you've seen that yet.
Nice.
And it's a building downtown.
Okay.
And that's one there every Wednesday at 10 a.m.
Okay.
Or 9 a.m. Every Wednesday at 9 a.m. You can show up there at 9:30 or 8:30. I meant show up there at 8:30, do a little pre-networking.
Yeah.
But then they have 2 presenters speak.
All right.
You're in your 5th year. You have to be a startup. They'll probably make an exception.
Okay.
But you have to be within your 5th year. You know.
All right.
The first 5 years, kind of, because it's kind of like a startup, kind of
Yeah.
accelerator kind of thing. But you go on there, you know, it gives you an opportunity to really refine, because you have a 6-minute speech, refine what you do and how to convey it in 6 minutes, and then you have 20 minutes of Q&A.
Okay.
Where the crowd just asks you a question about your business, and then afterwards you can start making connections and start building those relationships with local people.
You see, it's all about taking the time and doing that type of event.
It really is, yeah. And so definitely apply to that.
Okay.
Then and you can watch this back and then maybe you'll be able to see it. So.
Yeah, because I won't remember it now.
And then we got Power Connectors every 4th Tuesday of the month.
Nice.
They're I don't know where they're going to be meeting. I don't know where because they're changing. But Power Connectors. Every 4th Tuesday, look that up. Go on Meetup, meetup.com or Meetup the app. Yeah. And look for type in networking events. You know? All right. And then it'll show you some regular ones. Okay. There's Heartland Connect.
Never heard of that.
It's spelled. They have a pretty good show out too, and it's almost purely networking. They have like a little thing where the sponsors go up and talk a little bit, and do giveaways. I think. Yeah. But that's short, and the majority of it is networking, and there's 100 people that show up, I think. Cool. And there's other people. You'll find your local painters. Yeah. You'll find your local other plumbers. because there's a lot of people who all of them. Everyone there is business professionals.
You see, you just gave me 6 different 6 different avenues.
Yeah. And what's another good one, Marcus?
I was thinking Power Connectors. That's a good one.
Okay. And. Yeah, those are 2 good ones. That's actually 1 Million Cups right there. That's their sticker.
I like it.
Yeah, that's a good rough. All right. That's good for you to start working on.
Yes, thank you.
and it'll help get your name out there, I think.
Right.
And yeah, there's obviously other methods to do that as well, but that's just the networking way.
Cool.
So there's always multiple ways that you can grow your business, and the what you as you got to figure out which ones work best for you, and then just double down on them. If you don't like networking, don't do networking. Yeah. But yeah, so just wanted to let you know some of the local things that go on.
It.
Yeah.
Heck yeah.
Well, all right. Yeah. So we'll wrap this up.
All right.
This has been the COS Business Podcast, and we'll see you guys on the next one.
Thank you.